This is a story about how I turned my life upside down at 30. In the last 4 months, I've quit a stable job. I've split up with a partner of 10 years, and I've moved out of London to live in Portugal. So here's how it's going. This is new for me, this whole thing. I'm not one to usually put my life out there on the internet like this, but I kind of felt drawn to start recording this chapter of my life. Partially, I suppose, as a little diary for me through this crazy time, but also for anyone out there who might find a little bit of comfort in this, maybe a little bit of inspiration from my little life. So I guess stay tuned to find out what it's like to rebuild your life at 30. But I'm gonna have to catch you up. So how did I get here? Well, the first thing I'll say is that I didn't see it coming. I lived a very good life in my 20s. I had a wonderful partner, great relationship, was living in one of the most exciting cities in the world, in London, UK, and was building a really good career in tech. The truth is that for a really long time, I didn't feel like I belonged in my own life. I wasn't sure if I'd really chosen the path I was on for myself, or if I was just kind of stumbling along and saying yes to whatever life was throwing at me. I felt anxious a lot. For some reason, I didn't feel like myself, and I could barely hear myself think in the kind of like fast-paced life that I was living and in the environment I was in. So it felt like I was just constantly being distracted. And I think that for many of us hitting this phase of our life, something in your subconscious forces you to stop and ask yourself, like, is this really what I want? Do you even know what you want? And this is what hit me about 2 years ago. I had come to Portugal to stay with my mom over Christmas, and she lives in the middle of nowhere, so you can't hear anything but the birds and the rustling of the trees. So I had so much headspace because of all this peace and quiet being outside of London that I managed to switch off of autopilot mode and actually sit with my thoughts. Then what started as a little reminiscent thought about a period in my life when I felt really happy and I felt really connected to myself, it turned into a bit of a landslide of overwhelming anxiety, feeling like suddenly my life felt like it was all wrong. I was thinking, why am I living in London and enduring this? I don't even like it here. It's cold, it's gray, it's expensive. The quality of life is not good, in my opinion. And my career was going in a great direction, but it was a path that I'd kind of accidentally fallen into and stuck around for lots of good reasons. But I knew that I'd wanted something with a little bit more purpose and something that just felt like a bit more aligned to who I was, maybe. This was also when I started to have this feeling that my 10-year relationship was kind of doomed. And I couldn't put my finger on why. And I could barely even admit it to myself at the time because it would have meant possibly breaking my own heart and breaking the heart of somebody that I really loved. But for the first time in a long time, I could actually hear myself, my inner self. And it was like the universe was just going, shh, wake up, you're not listening. You're not listening. And the anxiety got so overwhelming that I had a bit of a breakdown. And my sister found me at one point in not a very good state. And I remember turning to her and saying something like, my life is going to be ruined. And that version of me had no idea what that really meant. But if I could go back in time and tell that version of me something, I would probably say, yeah, yeah, your life as you know it is going to be ruined and it's going to really suck. But this is the best thing for you, and you're going to realize how strong you really are. What followed was a couple weeks of a dark period of a lot of anxiety and reflection. I could barely talk to anybody, was having a hard time eating, and I had one lifeline actually, which was this book that happened to come into my life at the most perfect moment, and it's called The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck. I would recommend. But in this period of time, my partner wasn't there, and it was probably a good thing that he wasn't, but it was like impossible to explain what it was I was going through. That at that time I kind of just said, look, I need a bit of space while I'm here. I'll explain what I can later. And I pretty quickly made the decision that I kind of just needed to remove myself from my life for a while. And what that looked like for me was coming to Portugal and visiting London every once in a while. Thankfully, I had a remote job, so I could do that. I started doing semi-long distance with my partner, and I was basically spending a lot of time in nature and in the sun and just by myself, listening to my body. I spent a lot of time playing music, or trying to, because that was something that I have always really loved to do, but kind of disconnected from it somehow in my 20s. And that always made me really sad. So I was trying to reconnect with music, and it was tough, but I knew that it would help me feel a little bit more connected to myself. And I did a hell of a lot of nothing. A lot of days just spent sitting in the sun, going for a walk, reading a book, really just giving myself the time to just reflect on what it is I really want and what I see for myself moving forward. But this was a pretty slow process, and it lasted maybe a year and a half. It was like trying to recover from a spiritual burnout, but it was just taking ages. But this period of time was so uncomfortable and filled with so much uncertainty. It was like the path ahead of me that I had seen for myself just totally vanished. And I suddenly had no idea what I was doing or where it is I wanted to go. This would have been hard enough if you were single, but trying to navigate this with a partner who you saw your life with was pretty excruciating and confusing for both of us. But with every step I was taking in this new direction, I just knew that I was doing the right thing. I just knew deep inside. I didn't know where I was going, but it just felt right. So I trusted the process. And one thing that really helped me at the time was talking to a life coach. She was like a transformation and mindset coach. And this person is such a beloved friend in my life now because of how she helped me during that period of time. It's difficult to say if I would have made different decisions had she not been there, but having a space where I could share every thought and feeling, every concern, every fantasy, every fear, was so helpful. And having someone validate me every step of the way and helped me develop a real sense of self-trust, really made the process a lot less scary. But fast forward to 4 months ago, I had to make probably the hardest decision of my life so far, which was splitting up with my partner of 10 years. I'd basically spent the whole of my adult life with this person by my side. He was a wonderful partner. We had a healthy and loving relationship always. And we really did our best trying to navigate this period of uncertainty together. And he showed me so much support and understanding and kind of just let me do what I needed to do, despite it being difficult for him to. There were a number of reasons I could point to that would explain why this was the right decision for me, but it was actually none of these reasons specifically. What it was for me was just this feeling that started as a whisper, but eventually got loud enough for me to know, to just know it wasn't right. And I couldn't really explain why. It just wasn't right, and I just knew it deep down inside. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'm still trying to make sense of it, but I think in time it will become clear. But I will say that as soon as I made that decision, I had this sense of peace deep down that it was the right thing to do. And so I've been able to hold on to that as some kind of solace. Is solace the right word? I don't know. And 2 days later, I quit my job. I quit my job. I had basically zero energy to do any work whatsoever, and I needed a break and really just wanted to give myself time to grieve and maybe create a bit of space for newness in my life. And quitting was really hard. The moment of quitting was surprisingly hard. I wasn't really ready to do it at that time, but I just knew I had to. And the moment I said it, I broke down in tears, and my boss was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not okay." This is 2 days after the breakup, so I was not in the best of states. But it was a team that I worked with for 7 years. I felt really loyal to them, so it felt like another breakup in a way. But as soon as I did it again, that sense of peace, I just knew it was right. So the last few months have been a grieving process. I think I'm, coming out of that grieving process now, and I feel a lot of lightness and hope for the future. And my learning from all of this, I think, is really about making space to listen to your gut and your intuition, and also finding the strength to follow it, even if it means breaking your own heart, and even if it means ruining your own life. And right now, I really want to get so good at trusting myself, that I never have this feeling of self-abandonment for the sake of other people, or for the sake of following a path that you should be taking, or the path that other people believe is good for you. I believe we have this sort of mystical life force somewhere inside us, don't know where, that's trying to lead you down the path that is most purposeful. And wherever it is it's trying to lead you, it's got coded into it your unique blueprint for your life, where you can be of most service and be most fulfilled. And I bet you, if you trust it and find out where it's taking you, you'll find out pretty quickly that you've got this feeling inside that is right. And you might not know where it's taking you yet, but it will feel authentically yours. So anyway, what's next for me? Well, I'm loving living in Portugal, in the sun, by the sea. And next week, I'm starting a new, really exciting role, part-time. And with the rest of my time, I'll be building my own life coaching business and playing lots of music and posting that. I'll put links down below if you're interested. And also starting a podcast with my sister. And the podcast is kind of about figuring out life in our 30s together. So if you kind of enjoy content like this, you might enjoy it. I've also been working on getting really fit and healthy. That's a process. And next month, I'm actually moving to a new city. I'm moving up to Porto. And we'll be living by myself for the first time ever. So that'll be a fresh start. We'll need to make new friends, probably need to sign up to a dance class or something like that. But I feel deeply well. I feel mentally, physically, spiritually better than I have in a long, long time, despite how tough this last couple years has been. So I'll be sharing some of my challenges and adventures as I try to rebuild my life in my 30s. Feel free to follow along if you'd like. And I hope that this has brought somebody out there a bit of comfort, maybe a little bit of inspiration. If you happen to be a version of me 2 years ago, and maybe you're scared, feeling disconnected, feeling lost, I will just encourage you to make space, to listen to what your body's telling you, and just take little steps, one by one, little steps to follow what it is your body is telling you. And I almost guarantee you, as soon as you start to do that, you will start to feel like you're on the right path. You'll probably be okay. You might even be more than okay. We'll find out. Anyway, thank you for listening. And I'd love to know in the comments if you related to anything that I've said. And if you've got some advice for me in this next phase of life, that'd be much appreciated. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.